So please welcome Julie Ryan to the show. And yes, I said Julie Ryan. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be with you.
Oh, thank you from Alabama. And, I love to talk before we hit record, in these interviews. And I didn't want to give away things because I want it to come across as like the first time you hear it. I don't have to repeat. But, I've known of you for years and I've listened to your podcast and listened to your calls on YouTube. And, it's like when I get to like the fifth year of this podcast and I get an email from your amazing team saying, "Will you interview Julie Ryan?" I had to go, "Is that the one that I just love and have followed for all these years?" Like, really, it's like, did it? I must have made it, like in the
No.
podcast world, and I feel that way. But then I feel like too, like where I'm at, 56 years old. My girls are almost out of Presley's almost done with high school, and I'm really turning into this healing, and I see the world turning into this healing. It's just the frequencies and the energy and all these different devices that people are coming up with, and learning from you and seeing like just the power that we have, and that we've been dumbed down our whole lifetimes to believe that we can't heal ourselves or that we need some outside doctor or pill or whatever to heal us.
Right.
But when I have been learning from you, and I always in my mind know that I can heal and know that I can, you know, have that power to, visualize or go to my whatever is wrong, or go to the girls when they're not feeling good and lay with them and put my hands on them and do the whole healing. It's so exciting. And now with you, you take it to the next level. But my point of even saying that is like after knowing that I was going to have this time with you and looking at it from a how can I share the most magic of Julie in an hour is, if you don't know Julie, then maybe like go study her. But I want you to kind of explain, because I look at like your past and what you did as a career for 30 years. And as a medical device entrepreneur, all these things. But look what you're doing now. Like it's just so connected. And so, but you kept picking, I always talk about the breadcrumbs, but you kept picking up the breadcrumbs. And I kind of want to go into where you came into this place where you like, I want to learn about that. I know I can do that. Like where you
Mhm.
uncovered your magic. But kind of give us a little bit of a background so people, not too much, because there's so much magic that I want to share.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm going to hire you as my PR agent here. Thank you for all your kind words. I am a businesswoman and an entrepreneur and an inventor who learned how to do woo woo, and I'm a buffet of psychicness.
I
That's
love it.
my calling card.
I love it.
So, how this worked was 30 years ago, I had a girlfriend send me a book, give me a book for my birthday called Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mace. And I was a mom and a wife and a businesswoman and an inventor and manufacturer and all that jazz. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I read it. Carolyn Mace is the author, and she called herself a medical intuitive. And I thought, well, what the heck is that? I'd never heard that term before. And I have founded 9 companies in 5 industries. It wasn't all medical, but there was always medical in the mix. I always had a medical company, medical device company on the supply side, not on the care side.
Right.
So back then we didn't have the internet yet. So I did the old fashioned thing and I went to a Barnes and Noble bookstore and I looked to see if there was something else along these lines. And what I found was a book called Anatomy of the Spirit by Barbara Brennan, the late Barbara Brennan, who was a NASA physicist who parlayed very complex quantum physics principles into understandable English for the non scientific mind. That would be me.
Mhm.
And I thought she was using energy to help heal. And I had been involved in creating devices to help people heal and distributing devices that help people heal. But on the medical provider side, on the surgery side or on the whatever. And I wanted to know more. So I called her school, which at the time was on Long Island. And I said, "You guys got anybody teaching this stuff in my area?" They said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. We have a graduate that just opened a school." I said, "Terrific." I said, "Get me in touch with her." And we did. And then I studied with her for 6 years. Now, I didn't know that I had any psychic abilities. Now I know that we all come in with them. But I laugh and I think, I didn't have dead people chasing me as a kid, let alone what I would have done with that information had I known it. I learned how to do all this stuff. And this is what I teach people how to do now from all over the world. And it's been really interesting. And I'm like a human MRI. I can see inside people's bodies, obviously with their permission. I don't walk around scanning people because I think that's unethical. But I can see in my mind's eye broken bones, torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer, or whatever. And then watch energetic healings happen that help them heal themselves because nobody heals anybody else. What happens is spirit works through me and with me and all of my graduates, and we help that person heal themselves. So that's just kind of the abbreviated version. Fast forward, what I learned was the thing that interested me the most was the healing part of the equation. And what I realized once I started studying it was once you connect with spirit, you can do it all.
Right.
You know, you can talk to dead people, you can scan animals, you can talk to trees, you can do past lives, you can tell how close to death somebody is, you can, gosh, communicate with angels and saints and whomever, because it's
Right.
all energy. And I think that's something that surprises people.
Hmm. Thinking of when you talk about, we all can do this.
Yeah.
We all are gifted. We are born this way. And then all our limiting beliefs, our programs, society, all the things. And now I feel like we're at this bridge in Earth that you're what you're doing is what we're all. It's going to be like this is going to be the norm. People aren't going to be like questioning, "Are you really doing?" I feel like it's all like it's thinning. Do you see that?
I do, very much so. Yes. And in the 30 years that I've been doing it, and for the first several years, I was running my companies. So I just did it with family and friends primarily. And then when I sold my surgical device manufacturing company about 10 years ago, then I thought, okay, now what? What sounds fun? And I was led to do this. And to your point earlier, Ashley, I believe all of the different steps that we go through in life are leading us. You use the word breadcrumbs. They're a path that we're on, and it all comes together and it leads us into what our next adventure is. And certainly in my case, because the thing that brought me to all of this woo woo stuff was healing. And certainly my experience in the hospital supply industry gave me a foundation to from which to spring, obviously, into this. And then I had to go teach myself, okay, where's the spleen and really where's the gallbladder? And I'm seeing the gallbladder in somebody's body and I'm seeing this organ. I'm thinking, okay, I'm hearing gallbladder, but I went out and bought an anatomy book
Hmm.
and I read clinical studies all the time and I do things like that. Most of the work that I do is medical simply because that's what people ask me to do. But we can talk to, like I said, deceased loved ones, and you don't even have to have known them. You can talk to
Hmm.
anybody you want.
Right.
Anybody whose spirit's attached to a body, anybody whose spirit's in heaven, it don't matter. And do the whole buffet of psychicness thing, which makes it fun because it's always different.
When you go to a school like that for 6 years, is it you learning, like explain how that works? Because if it takes, I mean, I don't know if it takes 6 years or the first like year you're going, okay, I can feel, I can hear, I can sense, I could see someone's body, I can see their gallbladder. How does that progress for those?
Well, it's progressed a lot over the 30 years. I it's kind of like we had carrier pigeons to deliver the mail, and then we had the Pony Express, and then we had mail trucks, and now we can communicate instantly like what we're doing. And it's been the same for me. I studied it for 6 years back 30 years ago. Well, now I teach the whole buffet of psychicness in a weekend,
Yeah, 2
either
days.
either online or in person. I do one online. We just finished it a couple of weeks ago, and then we'll do another one in person in Atlanta, October 24th through the 26th, I believe. And that's a blast when we're all together. I mean, the energy is just palpable when we're online together, but my goodness, when we're together in the hotel that we rent out, it's just
Oh,
amazing.
I bet.
So
But 2
much fun.
days, 2
2
days.
days, 2 days. And it's the thing that I've understood, and I was taught this too, is it's less about technique, more about the transfer of energy from me to my students. Because once somebody can get into a high vibration and they know how to connect with spirit and they know how to validate the information they get, then it's just second nature to allow spirit to communicate through us and with us to help
Right.
whomever, whether it's somebody grieving and we're talking to their deceased loved one's spirit, or it's somebody who has a medical condition or somebody that wants to do a past life thing. It's all the same thing. It's all about having a high vibration. So in my classes I say it's 10% technique and 90% transfer of energy and sitting in that high vibe
Mm.
so that we get used to it.
Right, I bet. It's so interesting, the vibration and where I live in my life. And when I notice like that little bit, it's like, oh, we gotta like, it's like it's a muscle now, like
Yeah.
knowing that where I have to be most of my day. And if it falls a little bit and I'm like, oh, I gotta get back. And it's just so evident in my life in knowing that that is such an intention that I live that way, that I see the magic. And I'm always about the magic. And with my girls, like when you're this happy, find the joy, find this high vibration. And just what it does to the cells of the body, like listening to what you're talking about, how our words speak to our cells, our everything is like so alive in our thoughts and our words.
Oh, absolutely. One of my dear friends is a Taoist priest, and his name is San Cheng, and he says the most important elixir that we need to remember in our lives is hopium. And I said,
Oh,
"What's
what's
that?"
that?
And he said, hopium. When we have hope, it affects our beliefs affect our thoughts affect our brain chemicals, puts us in a high vibe when we feel good, and that's when we attract what we're looking for. I
Yes,
thought that was
that is
great.
so
Hopium.
cute. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. So let's tell everybody, explain how when someone says, I have some kind of ailment, how you connect to them. Explain that process.
I raised my vibrational level to the level of spirit because spirit's always communicating with all of us, but we're not on the spirit channel. It's like spirit's communicating on the classical music channel and we're listening to the country music channel. It's just a
Right.
different program that's being broadcast. So I raised my vibrational level. This is what I teach too. It takes a nanosecond. I don't need to meditate for an hour first or twirl 3 times and jump on my left leg and raise my right hand. It's not necessary. You can do that if you want, but it's not necessary. And then I'm a visual learner, so I see things in my mind's eye. Spirit's going to communicate to us in a way that it's going to be really easy for us to glean the information that's being sent. So I'll envision a laser beam come from my body here in Birmingham, Alabama. It'll hook into you in San Diego. And then I'll have a hologram of you in my mind's eye. And it'll be as if I'm looking at an X ray or a CT scan or an MRI. And then I'll envision shooting energy from your feet up through the top of your head, and then things are identified.
Can
And
you do that with me right now?
I can, yeah, yeah. Is there something going on that you want me to check in particular?
No, no,
Okay, because, it's like you go get a bunch of scans at the hospital, they're going to find stuff. But
exactly.
normally, when I am working with a client, I'll do a blind swipe first because I want to see where the energy is going to go first. And then I'll have a checklist of things they want to cover because we only have a finite amount of time and I want to make the best use of our time.
Right.
So normally that's how I work with that. So you just want me to go in blind and see what
Sure,
comes
go
up?
in blind
Okay, so here we go. Here comes my laser beam
from
from
San
Sweet
Diego.
Home Alabama. Heading to you in San Diego. All right, got you shooting energy from your feet up through the top of your head. So the hologram of you in my mind's eyes turned around to the back and it went to the mid left side of your back. And I'm seeing some inflammation there. It looks like you need a chiropractic adjustment because that's what I just watched happen. Looks like you're a bit of a twisted sister. It's it's nothing dramatic, but I just watched that happen. And then your vertebrae all lined up. Like, if you're running one of those mallets down a xylophone and it just goes,
Right?
that's what I just watched happen with
Huh.
your back. So maybe you were doing something this weekend and you twisted weird or something along those lines.
Interesting. And I was listening to you were explaining like vertebrae, how they're like the breast implant, like you visualize the like
The
the
discs.
discs.
Yeah. They look like a half-filled water balloon or a
Right.
breast implant, that's kind of squishy. And so I watch stem cell energy regenerate any body part we need. It's amazing.
Yeah, explain
Amazing.
that. Because it's dippity doo. Because I remember dippity doo and I was like,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
me
bring
too. Me too.
it. I loved it.
Well, stem cell energy is a light amber colored gel, has sparkles in it, of course, because it's woo woo, gotta have sparkles. And it reminds me of Dippity Doo, the hair gel. When I was a kid in the 60s and 70s, I'm 10 years older than you. So I had a babysitter that used it. I was too little to use it when it was out, but they still sell it on Amazon,
Oh,
believe it or
funny.
not. So that will form any body part we need. It'll heal bones, it'll heal tissue, it'll generate new organs. I see molds, say, of a kidney, say a left kidney, and I watch stem cell energy regenerate a new left kidney. I watch the diseased kidney get removed. That goes back to my surgery experience. Watch the new kidney get put in, watch all the plumbing get hooked up. And there have been several times where the person goes and gets an x-ray or an MRI or something, and the doctors are going, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here with
Wow, I love
this?
it. Wow. What about with you
It's
with your
pretty fun.
health? Have you
Yeah,
had
I
to?
can scan myself, and I do if there's something going on. I'm notoriously healthy. I think because I live in this high vibe all
Yes,
the
me
time.
too. Yeah.
But I was in a car accident with myself. I
Oh,
hydroplaned
oh no.
and totaled a car, bent the frame. I was on an overpass and I ran into the cement, barrier thing. And I was probably 50 or more feet in the air. And
Oh my
I
gosh.
thought, sweet Jesus, please don't let me go flying off this overpass. And the barricade held, but when my foot was on the brake, it twisted so hard with the impact. My car spun a couple of times and it twisted so hard that I had a couple of spiral fractures. And so the car was drivable. I got it home and my husband was waiting for me in the garage and I was driving back from Atlanta, which is a couple of hours from Birmingham, and I said, I need to come in and use the restroom, and then we need to go to the emergency room because I have a broken foot. And he said, well, you wouldn't be able to walk on it. And I said, trust me on this. I can see where the brakes are in my foot. And sure enough, they were right where I told the doctor they were.
Wow.
Yeah, on the
Amazing.
x-rays. Yeah,
You always, yeah, and you also work with animals.
I
And
do. Yeah.
I would love, and I'm not going to, I have a Harley who's almost going to be 11. He's my oldest golden retriever I've ever had. And I was walking him this morning listening to you, and I was like, he speaks to me, but now he's getting old and he doesn't want to walk as far. And I'm like, oh, I want Julie to see, like, is he like, come on, mom, don't take me there, take me home, take Hercules with you, and just leave me at home. Can you connect to
Yeah.
Harley?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So how we do animals is I connect to you and then from you to Harley. And obviously I don't need to be with somebody to connect with them. I mean, we're thousands of miles apart. I always laugh and think I could find you in a galaxy far, far away if need be.
Right.
And so I've gone from you to Harley. Did you have a question for him?
Just, is he tired? Is he like not, like, I've never had, he's made it this far. I'm so grateful for his life this long,
His joints are lit up a little bit, especially his back hips and his back knees. I don't know what you call that on a dog. His hind legs, they look inflamed. So, inflammation looks like red fog on body parts. And I'm adding an anti inflammatory energy to them to get them to calm down with the pain. Arthritis, I have these crazy analogies that come into my head. And when they first started coming in, Ashley, I thought, oh my God, people are going to think I'm just a nut job. But I've come to realize that it's how spirit communicates to me so I can then communicate with the people with whom I'm working. So it gives them a visual of something from a human frame of reference for this energy healing stuff
Hmm.
that I'm doing. So arthritis in humans and in animals looks like this white, crunchy corrosion stuff that you'd see on a battery that's expired.
Hmm.
Have you ever opened
Yes.
up a flashlight and you think, "Oh my goodness, how long have
Right.
these batteries been in there?" And that's what it looks like in surgery when a joint is being
Huh.
scoped. So of course that's my frame of reference because I've seen it real time. So I'm clearing that out of Harley's hind legs and in his hips. He's got, especially the left hip, looks like it's more of an issue than the right. Does he limp a little bit on the
Yeah, he
left
does.
side?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. So we're putting some stem cell energy in there, Ashley. And there's always a vortex associated with the stem cell energy that is the what transforms the stem cell energy into new body parts. So we're just adding some more cartilage in that joint to
Huh.
help him
Oh, some
with
dippity
that.
do.
A little bit on the right side too, but the left side looks worse than the right to me. And the
Huh.
back legs look worse than the front
Okay.
to me. So he's in his body. He's not dying. If he was dying, I wouldn't be able to get a visual inside his body because the spirit's the power source for the body.
Right.
And when an animal or a human is dying, the spirit starts to come out the top of the head and hangs on. It kind of looks like a speech bubble in a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I say it's the equivalent of trying to look at an x-ray in a pitch black room with no electricity. I can't
Right.
get a visual. So he's not dying.
Okay.
Yeah, he adores you.
Oh, he better.
Yeah, he adores you. He likes the walks once he gets going. He's saying it's kind of like he feels like he has to rev up his motor.
Mm-hmm.
And that he said it's kind of like it lubricates the joints. He's showing me a locomotive, like an old-fashioned steam engine and a train, a big locomotive train where when it starts up, it's kind of lumbering. And then once it starts getting some momentum, then it can go
Oh, cute.
faster. Is he like that when you walk him?
Yes, but I'll have a whole new vision tomorrow when we go
Yeah, yeah,
with
the
that.
locomotive thing. Is there something that your mom can give more treats? Of course, they always want
Oh,
more
of
treats.
course.
Is there something she can, um, what's that chondroitin thing? Something chondroitin
Oh, for their
for his joints.
like yes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So see if there's a vet version of that.
Okay.
I heard the chondroitin. I didn't hear the first part. I don't remember what it is, but I heard chondroitin in my head. And that's how it works. Spirit's given me what I call divine downloads of information
Mm-hmm.
that come into my head. So I'm seeing things visually, I'm feeling them, I'm talking with you, talking with Harley. So good thing we're girls because we can multitask. It's a
Right.
female superpower.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about because I was fascinated because I've had past life regressions, but you are the you connect with the past lives, and I was explaining this to somebody with those mirrors, those 12 by that I grew up. I
Yeah.
remember having a wall of those mirrors when I was like what in the 70s.
Yeah.
But the 12 by 12, each one is a past life, and you pull it
Right.
out. Will you explain how you see that? Because it's
Sure,
so neat.
sure. Yeah, well, I'm an entrepreneur, so of course I have to do it differently than everybody else. Most people will do a past life regression
Right.
where they'll hypnotize somebody. I'm a businesswoman. Cut to the chase. I want to get the bottom line. Let's move on to something else that we can discuss. So I envision myself in this endless hallway. And I didn't learn this. This came in from spirit as
Hmm.
I've been doing this work. So let's say you asked me a question. Have I liked golden retrievers in past lives? Is there a reason why I love golden retrievers in this lifetime? Let's ask that question. So I
Okay.
envision myself in this endless hallway, very narrow walls, very tall ceiling. As far as the eye can see, there are these 12-inch by 12-inch square mirrors lined up perfectly vertically and perfectly horizontally in columns. And each lifetime represents a different, or each mirror represents a different lifetime. So we'll ask the question, does that, I'm in the Ashley Hall of Mirrors, right?
Okay.
A lot of people think that's the Akashic Records.
Right.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
So does Ashley have any past lives that are leading to her loving golden retrievers in this lifetime? The mirrors that correlate with that question will come out from the wall as if they're on a hydraulic arm. And then I'll say, show me the one that correlates the most. And that one will come out the farthest. And then I'll envision myself walking into that mirror. And it's like I'm walking into the scene of a movie. So if it's up really high, there just so happens to be an energetic forklift that's always in the Ashley Hall of Mirrors that will lift me up. And of course it's made out of sparkles because why not, right?
Right.
Spirit uses our imagination to communicate with us and to
Right.
work with us. So I'll be lifted up to the mirror and then I'll walk in and I'll be given where it was, when it was, a little bit about what happened. And then we'll correlate that with what's going on in this current life. And many times we can get information that we can corroborate with historic documents online, which makes it really fun when that
Wow.
happens.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So let's go to when your mom was passing away in
Yeah.
2002. Is that
Right.
the right
Right.
year?
Yeah.
And what led you to write your book? And I can't wait to share that because everyone can get a free copy. So get ready for the treat. But will you explain that,
Sure.
where that started and what kind of branched out from that?
Yeah. My mom was in the hospital. She needed to have a new hip, and they just decided they couldn't operate on her, and she was on just a crazy amount of pain. So I got a call on a Friday afternoon. She lived in Columbus, Ohio, which was 9 to 10 hour drive from us. And my brother said, we're taking her to the hospice facility. And I'm like, what? And so I said, all right. And I hung up the phone and I called my husband and I said, we got to see if we can get on a flight up to Columbus. He said, why don't we just drive? And I said, drive? We'll be driving all night. He goes, yeah, but we'll get there faster, which
Hmm.
God bless him. He was
Uh,
right. So our son was 10 at the time, and we made a bed for him in the back seat of the car and we drove all night and got there. And she was really not able to communicate at that point. I mean, I was in shock that she really was that bad. And so she was in a hospice facility, an inpatient hospice facility. And over the next 24 hours, she was deteriorating. She was dying from a physical standpoint. And at the same time, I was seeing all of these different occurrences transpire from the spiritual standpoint. And I'd never been with anybody who was dying before. I was in my
hmm.
40s at that point, but I'd just never been around anybody. So neither had any of my siblings. We didn't know what to expect. And as she was progressing, all of these, what I now call the 12 phases of transition, started to happen and appear. And they're a series of events that involve the spirits of deceased loved ones, angels, and the spirits of deceased pets. And they form this configuration that has different phases as the person approaches death, with some really amazingly miraculous nuances that I'll be happy to share if you want.
Yes.
And so as that was happening with my mom, on one side I felt like the Lady of Justice. On one side my heart was breaking because my mother
Right.
was dying, and on the other side I was watching this glorious
Hmm.
spiritual thing unfolding, and it kind of balanced
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
two. It helped balance the two.
So, will you go there? Will you explain
Sure,
the phases
sure.
and,
Yeah.
and I learned so much about what I wanted to bring up was you were explaining how, we'll go through the phases, but this is before they die. But the where you get to when they die and who comes first and and I just watched on your website the phases, each one.
Uh-huh.
Love for you to get in because I've never heard it the way you describe
I
these.
haven't heard it that way either.
Yeah.
Uh, but the interesting thing about that, Ashley, is a couple of years after I published my book, there was a book that came out and it was university based research that validated and corroborated everything I talk about.
Oh, wow.
So I love it when science catches up with woo woo
Yes,
because woo woo's been around for way longer since the
I
beginning
know.
of time. So what happens is, as I mentioned earlier, the spirit exits the body through the top of the head. It looks like a speech bubble that you'd see in a cartoon with the caption or the thoughts of the character. And the first person spirit who comes in to help the dying person is the maternal spirit. So in my mother's case, it was my maternal grandmother. We called her Meemaw, my Meemaw. And she had died 6 months prior to my mother dying. And she was there. And that surprised me. I really thought it'd be my mother's guardian angel, or I thought God maybe had like a, you know, dispatch department for people who were dying and they would send an angel to be with the death angel or something like that. It's not. It's always the maternal spirit closest to the person who's dying.
Huh.
And then the paternal spirit comes in again. My dad's gone. So if I was dying, my dad would be there too. My parents would both be there.
Okay.
If they were alive, it would be my maternal grandmother and my maternal grandfather. It's always on the maternal line,
Why is that? Because I keep
always.
hearing that.
Well, the only thing I can figure is because we give life and the
Hmm.
body knows how to be born and the body knows how to die.
Oh, yeah.
So the maternal spirit is there both at the beginning of life and at the end of life. And the interesting thing about the Jewish culture, especially, is a child is not considered Jewish unless the mother that births them is Jewish.
Oh, okay.
Which is why if there's a
I didn't know that.
Gentile woman marrying a Jewish man and they want to raise their kids Jewish, many times that Gentile woman will convert. And I believe that that has to do with, since the beginning of time, this understanding that it's always the maternal spirit that
Hmm.
is the one that's really leading the kids. And we think we're done with our kids when they're grown and married and off on their own. We are not. We're even helping them from the grave. I do have one caveat there. I do have um, people that will say to me, well, I'm adopted. Who's it going to be, my birth mother or my adopted mother? It's the mother that raises them.
Okay.
And I can see baby spirits attached to the mother's energy field before they are conceived and incarnate.
Mm-hmm.
And I see baby spirits attached to their adopted mother's energy field
Oh,
before
wow.
they're conceived and incarnate. So
Huh.
they'll use the birth mother as the portal, and her spirit is there in the bevy of other spirits that are there, but it's the woman who raises them. One other caveat, people will say to me, my mother was just the bitch from hell. She's the last person I want,
Oh, funny.
running things when I'm dying. And I remind them that all spirits are pure love. And that was her personality. So
Right.
when you're reunited with her in heaven, you can give her an Oscar and say, Mom, you were just so awful. You deserve the Academy Award for that. So that's fun. So then the paternal spirit comes in and they anchor a circle of angels around the person who's dying. And angels look to me like a 12-year Catholic school girl was taught angels look like: big wings, white gown, rope belt, barefoot. Somebody from the Amazon raised in an indigenous culture may see angel energy as just a ball of pink fluff or something.
Right.
And spirits are always going to appear to us in a way that we can recognize who they are based on our frame of reference. So, of course, that's what angels look like, because that's what they look like in the statues and the paintings and the prayer books and stuff that I was taught about as a child. And most of us in the Western culture, I think, have had angels presented to us in that manner. We think of angels with big wings and all of that. So as the person gets closer to death, that circle starts to opens into a horseshoe, eventually is a straight line across, let's say, the foot of the bed. Let's say somebody's in a bed. And then many, many more spirits come to greet the person. I call them the Welcome to Heaven Committee. And there are thousands and thousands of them. And they're from all time periods. And I can tell that by how they're dressed.
Hmm.
Some are in caveman outfits and some are
Oh
in,
my gosh.
Renaissance garb or 1960s and different cultures. And it's fascinating. And they look like dots on the horizon. There's so many of them there. And
Huh.
pet spirits, every pet that the person had in their lifetime shows up, regardless of if it's a dog or a cat, or if it's a horse or a guinea pig or a lizard or whatever. If somebody grows up on a farm or is currently living on a farm with animals, I'll see farm animals there and
Wow.
describe those, which gives people comfort. They think,
Right.
oh, Molly, their cow is here and her little spirit's here. And yeah, it's really sweet.
How do you explain that as far as like our soul family or our blueprint or like how we're connected from a higher perspective? Like, because I look at it like there's just a fractal of our soul and living in this body, and the people that are greeting us as we pass on and move from this body, are they fractals of something down there? Like, how do you see that?
I think they're from all of our lifetimes.
Okay.
I
And
think
everything's
they've
happening now.
Yeah. Well, and there are lots of schools of thought that there are multiple realities happening concurrently. So we live multiple lifetimes concurrently.
Right.
And that makes my brain want to
Me too.
explode because I don't understand it. So I go to, is it feasible? Yeah. Has spirit told me that's correct? Yes. So I think, okay, I'll figure it out when I get back to heaven. But it's feasible really satisfies me in the short run.
Right.
If
But when
it's
you think of parallel
feasible.
lives and like there's this timeline, like all these things where we're just focused in this energy
Right.
consciousness.
Yeah. It's like we're all starring in our own plays
Right.
or our own movies of our lifetime.
Do you
So
look at it like a game or like an illusion? How do you see life?
I think that we're supposed to have the human experience, and that's why we forget that we're spirits, and we forget that we all have this ability that we all come in with. We all come in with the ability that's telepathic or gut instinct or intuition or whatever you want to call it. And then we just can develop it. Little kids start to shut it down around the age of about 6. It's been my experience, primarily because they have grown-ups that say, "Oh, honey, that's just your imagination. That's not
Hmm.
really true." Or they perhaps have a friend and they're talking to their human friend about their spiritual friend. And the human friend is saying, "There's nobody there. What's wrong
Right.
with you? Are you some kind of freak or something?" And then they learn to shut it down.
Yeah.
So, but it's
Believe me.
but it's it's always there. It's always in the background. We're taught to have those gut feelings, but then try and rationalize them and think of something logically. And 9 times out of 10, if we follow what our gut instinct is, it's right.
Right. Yeah. I was reading
So
your
we're being
blogs.
led.
And that was probably what I was getting from it was, you're saying, because my mother-in-law has dementia and she just went to the hospital this morning with COVID. And I know and so there was so many articles on dementia on your blog. And so you were saying, go in your mind and tell her, like I was doing telepathy with her today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, like, are you, and I got like, you know, there's like a 7 tier of dementia. I've kind of learned about it because it happened so quickly the last few months. So I've been trying to educate myself. But when they can't really, when she's losing her memory, and when I was learning from those was like, when I connected with her, it was like, I'm at a 7. And I was like, okay, I'm going to trust it. But with your educate, what you educated me with was like, just whatever that comes, because I do so much automatic writing and my
Yeah.
dad comes through. I know it's my dad. I know I trust it. I practice that every day so I can connect with my dad. And so I use that as like I know that. So it kind of like today with her, because I never thought about that until like I'm
No.
just gonna have telepathy with grandma with,
Hmm.
like just keep sending her my mind, like tell her how much I
Right.
love her and that she's,
Yeah. Well, and they'll answer you, and it's that first thing that comes to your head,
right.
fast as you can snap your fingers, a lot of the time before you've even finished thinking the thought. And that's because time doesn't exist in the spirit world. Time's a human creation. So she's already got whatever it is you're talking about, and she'll respond with you, which comes in really handy, not only with people who aren't able to communicate, who are elderly or sick or injured or something, but how about babies
Mm-hmm.
that aren't verbal yet? I mean, how many of us have been up in the middle of the night with a sick baby and we can't console it and we're trying all of the tricks in our bags and we don't know what hurts and
Right.
we're trying to figure it out. What if we could just communicate with that little sweet baby and the baby could tell us what's going on? Well, we
Yeah.
can. All we have to do is just do it
Right.
and say something to them.
But
So
don't you feel, keep going, sorry.
well, I was
Continue.
going to say back to the 12 phases, a couple of nuances that I thought were particularly interesting with my mother. About phase 5-ish, there were two extra angels that showed up on either side of her spirit bubble. And then between phase 9 and 10, their wings started to move. And it reminded me of a giant owl because if you've ever seen a documentary on an owl, their wings are massive and it's like they're this slow rhythmic movement that you can almost feel the drag,
Mm-hmm.
when they
I
move.
love owls. Yes.
So when I was writing my angelic attendants, I was led to just do an internet search on owl wings vortex. And I found out, Ashley, there's this thing called the wingtip vortex
Hmm.
that is generated by everything that flies, every bird, every bug, every plane, every jet, every kite.
Oh,
And you
wow.
can you can do an internet search on it and there are thousands upon thousands of articles and aeronautical engineering drawings and photographs of the wingtip vortex that forms underneath the wings and it causes lift.
Wow.
So when I was watching this with my mother as she was approaching death, these angels' wings moved. They formed this big vortex above her head that I could see, I could feel, I could hear. And it reminded me of this sucking motion that when you're in your car at the car wash and you drive through and they turn the dryers on and it sucks all
Mm.
the water off your car. And
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't know what that was, but I knew that there would be some kind of correlation between that helping her spirit evacuate from her body. And it did. And
Hmm.
like near death experience people, many of them say they perceive themselves going through a vortex.
Right.
And that's what I saw. Furthermore, the thing that amazed me the most about this is back to the Catholic thing. At the end of every Roman Catholic funeral, there's a prayer either said or sung called In Paradisum, which in Latin means into paradise. And it talks about the angels and the loved ones will greet you and lead you into paradise. So at my mom's funeral, I was thinking, oh, good heavens, boy, this has a whole new meaning to it now. And again, when I was writing Angelic Attendants, I thought, I wonder where that prayer originated. So I looked it up and learned that it began as a 5th century Gregorian chant.
Huh.
And I have to believe that perhaps it took till the 5th century till someone was well educated enough that they could read and write. And certainly some of the most well educated people were men living in monasteries and synagogues. And so perhaps since the beginning of time, people have been able to see the 12, what I call the 12 phases of transition. And it just took till somebody could read and write,
Right.
to write it down. And it's
Huh.
survived all of these millennia since. I think
Right.
that's fascinating.
Oh,
The 12 phases happen regardless of how somebody dies. If somebody dies instantly, like in the case of a homicide or suicide, or whether they die over a very prolonged period of time, days, weeks, months, even years. Because remember, time doesn't exist in the spirit world, time's a human creation. So whether it's instant or whether it's over a prolonged period of time, everybody goes through the 12 phases of transition.
and you can, when you are with, when you're with somebody on Zoom or, you can tell which, you can see what phase they're in.
Yes. Yeah. And there's a free downloadable chart on my website, askjulieryan.com, of the 12 phases of transition. And it's a graphic that has all the 12 phases and what the positions look like. And if somebody has a loved one at the end of their lives, I always suggest download that free chart and save it on your phone. Download the picture, save it on your phone. And then you just ask, what phase of transition is grandma in? And you'll hear a number in your head instantly. And then you can refer to the chart and you can see, okay, grandma's gone from phase 7, 8, 9. We probably want to bring the family in if anybody wants to be here to say goodbye before she passes.
Right.
And also, it's important to note that just because somebody's in a phase of transition doesn't mean they're going to die, doesn't mean that they're going to stay in that phase or progress. Because over the years, I've seen people move up and move back.
Oh,
I've
okay.
even seen people that I thought wouldn't be alive for another hour and they came completely out of the phases and are
Why?
walking around 15 years later.
Why is that?
Well, I think that they decide that they're going to stay.
Hmm.
I think it's part of the dying process. And they want to go through that process for whatever reason. Their spirit wants to explore and experience, let's say, going through the process and being ready to pass and then pivoting and deciding, I think I'm going to stay around for a while.
Huh.
So,
But do we choose our exit? Are there many
yeah,
exit points?
we choose when we go, where we go, how we go, who's with us or not, when we go, and what the circumstances are that surround our passing. Yeah.
When do we decide that?
Or before we leave,
Right
or
before we leave.
a year before, or everybody's different. Like in the case of a homicide or suicide, it's instant. Like in the case of somebody that, like your mother-in-law that has dementia, that's going to be a prolonged period of time with her.
Right. But when we are in spirit, where just do we come up with our, like, this life, this will be my lesson. I'm gonna die from dementia, or like, are you choosing those things in your
I
mind?
think we do, and then I think we have free will, and we have a basic script, and then we can maneuver that script in a lot of unlimited ways based on what it is we want to continue to explore and experience. It's not my understanding or my experience that we come in and it's just a roadmap. Okay,
Right.
you do this when you're 5, then you're going to move here when you're 7, then you're going to do this, then you're going to do this. I think that it evolves, but we have the basic trajectory of what we want to explore and experience. Like you want to be a communicator. Well, there are a bazillion ways you can be a communicator. I
Right.
mean, you have to have a show. You might be a singer, you might be a teacher, you might be a whatever. And then we decide that.
Right. Do you see, like, so I work with children and I know you have children books, and I work in San Diego at certain schools and I have classes online, and it stemmed from this podcast from me talking about parenting. And I'm just very passionate about that. And I see the 6-year-olds, like you were saying, I'm like, oh, stay there. Let's not be programmed. I want you to believe who you are. But when you have you connected with like an autistic kid or that couldn't speak, that was nonverbal, and go into their mind and have that telepathy? Like, and I also feel like I've learned a few things. These videos that pop up into my awareness are these new children in 2027 that are like going to be on this completely different frequency that are born. Do you know anything like how you can like will they be speaking telepathy? Are autistic kids like way advanced in a different dimension? How do you see that?
I had Susie Miller on the show, on my show, on my Ask Julie Ryan show, and she's in the telepathy tapes. And so we did a whole hour and a half on that. And she, I have worked with many autistic children over the years and communicated with them telepathically when they're nonverbal with their family members. And Susie brought it to a whole new level because they've discovered that these kids meet up with other autistic kids' spirits on different mountaintops and things like that in their mind.
Hmm.
So it's a different reality. But Susie said we could have children that have never met each other, let alone live close by each other or go to the same school. And they're talking about the same experience in the same place in vivid detail. She said the research is just really amazing on that. To answer your question about the vibration, I believe each generation comes in with a higher
Hmm.
vibration. Most of us have been around a toddler who can work our iPhones better than we can,
Right.
and they're not even talking in sentences yet. And I think, how's that work?
I know.
But they are so wise. We think we have to mold our children. Our children really teach us,
Hmm.
I think, as much as we teach them. We certainly need to help them stay safe and healthy and those kinds of things. But little kids are so wise. May I share a recent story about that?
Please.
My nephew, Jack Ryan, was
Oh my
visiting.
gosh, cute.
Do you love that? He's
Yes.
such a doll. He's my great nephew. And his dad and his uncle and he came to Birmingham and we went to the Talladega car races because this kid loves NASCAR because he watched the Cars movie, the Disney Cars
Hmm.
movie, as a toddler. He was so excited. Oh my goodness. And throughout the weekend, people kept saying to him, Jack, what's your favorite thing about this? What's your favorite thing you've gotten to do? And he kept saying, I love it all. And then when it was all over, several people said, well, Jack, what was your favorite thing? And he said, I loved it all. He kept saying that throughout the weekend. And I thought, how insightful is that for a 6 year old? We adults want to compare everything. Well, what
Hmm.
was your favorite thing? Well, we have to think, why can't everything be our favorite thing like Jack?
Right.
How
Cute.
fabulous is that?
Oh, I
And it
love that.
really struck me.
Hmm.
Here's this little squirt who's so wise and so happy to do whatever when we dragged him all over that track and he got to sign his name on the finish line with a Sharpie and he got to be in the garages with the cars and everything else. And he was just that you talk about through the eyes of a child.
Hmm.
Everything was just amazing to
Right.
him to get to
Right.
do that.
Oh, I
Even the
love that.
drive, I thought he'd be asleep because it was about an hour drive from my house and then an hour once we got to the track, to get to the parking lot because it was so crowded. And he was just happy and interested and reading the signs and just an adult might have been in a cranky mood because we were in a bunch of traffic, but he was just happy for the experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, there's some of when I was reading your blogs about people connecting with their guardian angels because we all have one guardian angel for our every lifetime and
Right.
how you find the name
Yeah.
and they connect with it. Will you
Right.
explain that?
Well, it's funny about guardian angels. I agree that we have a guardian angel that stays with us throughout all of our lifetimes, and they're with us in heaven in between lifetimes. And so early on, when I first started asking guardian angels for their names, they would give me this name, Ashley. It'd be like 15 letters and they'd be all consonants. And I'd say, how am I supposed to pronounce that? Is it a dead language? Is it some language that is from a planet far, far away? What's the deal on that? And so I started asking them, I said, can you just give me an American English name that's easy to pronounce? And so they started coming in with Sam or Joe or Anna or, Susie or whatever. And the funniest part about guardian angel names, I was in Ireland last summer, and my girlfriend's granddaughter wanted to know her guardian angel's name. Her name's Willow, and she was 5, I think, at the time. And she said, Miss Julie, what's my guardian angel's name? And so I told her, and she said, does she have a middle name?
Oh,
And I
cute.
said, I don't know. And I asked her guardian angel, and the angel said, if she wants me to, I do. And I
Oh,
said, okay, what's your middle name? And she gave us a name. I don't remember what it was, but they don't care what we call them. Because when we think of guardian angel, that connects our satellite dish head to their frequency, and they're immediately there. And it opens up like a two-way radio communication, and then we can converse with them. We
right.
just say something, and then they're going to answer us, and it's going to feel like a thought in our heads.
Do you do that a lot? Do you have a conversation with your guardian angel?
No, not much. I talk to my spirit guide more, who's a dead pope. May I
Okay,
share that
that's right. Yeah,
story?
tell me that story. I forgot
Uh,
about that.
that story is a riot. I was with my mentor one day, and this was several years after my mom had passed, and I had developed the 12 phases of transition and had worked with several other people, family and friends primarily. I mean, I wasn't doing it for a business at that point. And so I'm with my mentor, and when she's doing a healing on me, actually, my deceased loved ones line both sides of the massage table. I'm on a massage table face up. And so one day, this dead Pope spirit shows up with the hat on and the
Oh
shepherd's
my
rod
gosh.
and the whole 9 yards. And I said to him, well, who are you? And Susan, my mentor, could see him too. And he said, well, I'm Clement. And I said, oh, great. I never heard of a Pope Clement. He said, well, I was number 6. I said, okay, how may I help you? Kind of like, why are you here?
Huh.
And I was nice about it. And he said, well, you're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies, because it's been so bastardized over the years and people are afraid, and there's nothing to be afraid about. You know that. And I said, I'm really not interested in that. Thank you very much. But I'm a businesswoman and people will think I'm nuts. So, yeah, thanks, anyways. And he said, no, no, no. Everything you've done in your life is to prepare you for this. And you just need to get on with it. You need to do it. And I said, okay, well, thanks again for stopping by. Not interested. So I go to leave, Ashley, and I look up on my phone Pope Clement the Sixth, and I find out this guy was in office during the Black Plague when
Wow.
two-thirds of Europe died, and he's best known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead. And I thought, Ryan, you can't make that up.
No, you
I never
can't.
heard of him. And he's hilarious
Hmm.
because he always has his hat on when he shows up. And I'll say to him, Clement, I know who you are by now. You don't need the hat. He goes, yeah, but it looks good, don't you think?
Oh my gosh.
It's hilarious. Yeah, spirits are really funny.
Huh.
They're really funny. So he really egged me on to write angelic attendants. And I kept saying, I'm not doing that. I'm not interested. Don't want to do it. And then one day I was in church, and my husband was on one side and my son was on the other. And the priest from the pulpit said, don't you wish somebody could tell us if our angels and our deceased loved ones really greet us and lead us into paradise? And I was getting elbowed from my husband and my son. And I thought, God, really? From the pulpit? You're giving me grief about this? Really? And so I decided to write the book. And
Oh,
that's
neat.
that's really what started this whole trajectory of the whole Ask Julie Ryan
Huh.
thing that's going on now.
What about your husband and your son? Are they with you on this train?
Oh yeah, very much so. My my husband, when we were dating, he said, I there were a couple times I thought, okay, do I need to find the door now and get out of here? Because I was interested in it at that point. And I scanned his foot. He had a bone spur on his foot, so I was doing a healing on his foot. And I said, you had plantar's warts. And he said, no, I don't. And I said, well, you don't now, but you did. I can see where they burned them off. And he said, I was 10.
Wow.
He said, there's no way you would know that. And I said, well, I do because I could see them. And then watched the bone spur get removed. And he was scheduled for surgery the next week. And he went in for his pre-op visit and the bone spur was gone.
Wow. Jeez.
So he said, okay, there's something going on here. My son has grown up with it and all of his friends. So even though many of them are married and some of them even have their own children, I'll get a text from them, Miss Julie, because we're in the South. Miss Julie, my throat hurts. Do I need to go get
Oh,
antibiotics? Can you scan me? What's going on? 'Cause they've just been
cute.
around it their whole lives.
Right. Oh, I love that. Oh, I've loved talking to you. I feel so honored that I got to be in your presence for an hour. Let's tell everyone how to find you, your book, and how to get it, and all the
Yeah.
things that Julie Ryan.
Angelic attendance, what really happens as we transition from this life into the next. If you want a free copy, just go to julieryangift.com, julieryangift.com, and we'll send you a free digital and audiobook version. Share it with your family and friends. I think this information should be taught in the schools.
Oh, me
I
too.
think it's that important. And it has diagrams in it about the 12 phases of transition. So it makes it really easy to understand. Everything is under Ask Julie Ryan, askjulieryan.com. My show is Ask Julie Ryan. On all the podcast networks, we've got 5 YouTube channels in 5 different languages. Everything's at
Amazing.
askjulieryan.com. You can access everything, even the free book there. So
Are
that's
you
the
is this
easiest way.
all, is this going to be is this the trajectory you see the rest of your life doing?
This is the first thing I haven't ever had a business plan for in 9 companies. And people say to me, well, what are your goals? And I say, I don't know. I don't have any. They
Yeah.
say, well, what do
I
you mean
love
you don't
that.
have any? You're a businesswoman. I go, yeah, I just don't. And I'll say, well, why are you doing this? I'm being led.
Right.
And so it's the most fun thing I've ever done. I get to meet people from all over the world. If you would have told me 7 or 8 years ago when I started on this journey that we'd be doing all the things, 7 books, 5 YouTube channels, we release 4 shows a week on the
Wow.
channel, 3 interviews and 1 call-in show. And so it's a lot. I have a team now, started as a one-woman band.
Yep. I
You know
love
how that
that.
goes.
Yep.
And so it's going in directions that I haven't even thought of yet because I really believe I'm being led. And every morning I ask, how can I serve? You
Hmm.
know, lead me, show me what's going to help people.
Yeah, that's shifted in me a lot in the last few months of, thinking, what do I need, the goals and getting down and trying to put, and I thought, no, I've left that space and I'm just being led. And it's
Yeah.
such a beautiful way to live your day, like if that comes up or someone calls you or, you're, whatever's feeling that brings me the highest joy,
Yeah.
I go.
Right. Right. And when the thought of, "Ugh, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that." Well, if you know how to read, you
Right.
can do anything you want to do.
Right. And if they want to go learn from you in 2 days to do what you do, like,
Exactly. Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have online training too that's self-paced. But the key with my trainings is they all have practice groups, and the practice groups are the key because when you get validation for the information you're receiving, you learn to trust it. The more you trust it, the more you do it, and then it's just second nature.
Right. Right. People say, well, I want to be that. I want to do that. Well, it's not, yes, it's in you, but it is a practice. It is something, it's not just something that one day the light switch goes on and, right?
Well, for some people it is. It's been my experience that we need validation
Hmm.
just to know that the information we're getting is accurate. And I have techniques that help people validate the things that they're learning. And I think that it is a muscle. The more you do it, the more it comes in. And we're all getting information from spirit all day long, but we have 70,000 thoughts on average a day that come into our heads. So
Mhm.
how do we differentiate between, is that guidance from spirit or is that my paranoia happening?
Right.
One really easy way to discern between the two is if it feels neutral or good, it's usually accurate. If it feels bad, you need to investigate it. Is it a real fear or a fake fear?
Right. Yeah, I love that. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, my
So
honor.
grateful. I
Thank you for
loved it.
having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.